Well, good morning, everyone. Glad to see you all here. We're in this smaller, cozier room, so we're kind of packed in, but that's actually it makes it very resonant for the chanting. It's really nice, right? Like it seems like a full room, so that's a wonderful thing. Good morning also to everybody joining us online. Hopefully this is oriented right. There we go. And I want to say welcome to Hashimoto Sensei. Hajime Mashite. Very glad to have you here with us. And we have this morning our Hanamatsuri service, as well as the usual Shotsuki Hoyo. Also, I note that Earth Day is coming up next weekend, right? Next Saturday, right? That's the 20th, I think. Am I right? 22nd. 22nd? Wait a minute. Well, what is today? I don't know what day it is. I know it's Saturday, right? What's the date? I can't tell. Well, it's coming up pretty soon, anyways, Earth Day, because I keep getting notifications in my email, so it must be arriving pretty soon. Okay, all right. Really, every day should be Earth Day, honestly. Since we have Hanamatsuri now and we have Earth Day coming up, I wanted to try to give a Dharma talk that kind of related to some of these things. In my mind, there's some connections between things such as Buddhism and the environment, ecological awareness, and I think they actually connect to Hanamatsuri as well. I actually just turned in a journal article about Jodo Shinshu and environmental initiatives. So this is on my mind very much. That's going to be a chapter in a book that I'm writing on Jodo Shinshu and various sort of social engagement projects. Many people are probably aware of Ray's important work on climate change, as a matter of fact. But they may not be aware of many other ways that Buddhists are also involved in helping the earth. And the example that I wanted to talk about today is something from Japan. It's called Terra Energy. This Terra Energy, this is a company actually, was founded in 2018 by Reverend Takemoto Ryogo. He's a Jodo Shinshu minister whose temple is in the Nara area. And this is a company which is run by him and by three other Jodo Shinshu ministers. They're based in Kyoto, but they actually operate throughout the country. Now, some people may know that Terra means temple. Terra or Otera is what we call a temple in Japan, right? So Terra also in Latin, do we know what that means? Land or earth. Very good. Excellent. Okay. And of course, also Terra, like a teravolt, that's a measurement of energy, right? So this Terra energy that they've created there, this is temple energy, with the further implication that it's earth energy. It's energy provided by and in harmony with the earth. This is what they're trying to promote. So Terra Energy, this is a Buddhist energy company. You may not have heard of this before. You may not have imagined, oh, there are Buddhist energy companies out there. But indeed, here's one example. The purpose of this Terra Energy, the reason why Reverend Takemoto created it, is to provide clean energy to the public as a way of improving both the environment and also society. It actually has both of these purposes. And I'll explain how they do that kind of briefly here. So Japan's big energy companies, these are major profit makers, the major power holders, and honestly, major exploiters. Most energy production in Japan is polluting, it's non-sustainable, and some of it is outright dangerous, given that a significant portion comes from nuclear energy. And Terra Energy specifically seeks to combat those negative trends. So Terra Energy delivers over 75% of its energy to customers from renewable sources, such as solar, wind, hydro, biomass, and so on. So over 75%. This contrasts with just 7% renewable energy from the large non-Buddhist companies that until quite recently had a complete lock on the energy system in Japan. Deregulation is quite recent. Furthermore, Terra Energy takes 0% of its energy from nuclear sources. So they're trying to promote this idea of a much cleaner, more sustainable, healthier for people and healthier for the environment way of gathering and distributing energy in Japan. Terra Energy, it expands not by advertising, but rather by direct approaches to families and to temples who are their primary clients. They go there and they directly work people to explain energy issues and to invite them to join up with them. This enables them to educate people about environmental issues, even if they don't choose to switch over to Terra Energy. They've still at least been educated about what the energy situation is, which honestly, the average person is kind of in the dark about the sources of their energy and about larger energy policies and so on in Japan. One program that Terra Energy has is installing solar panels for free on people's land. The way they do it is they install the panels, with all the costs involved, and then once they're installed, they take the energy which is produced by those panels over the years until that amount that they've taken equals the amount of the installation charges that it costs them to install it. Once they break even, then they hand the ownership of the solar panels over to the homeowners or the temples or whomever this is. And then that becomes their property, and they're able to sell their energy to Terra Energy or use it themselves or do with it as they like. This is their way of just creating a greater infrastructure for renewable, sustainable, environmentally conscious energy out there. And this company, Terra Energy, they put a portion of their profits into what they call the Warm Heart Fund, as a translation here, which is their charitable services division. This is an important part of what they're doing. This Warm Heart Fund, it donates the profits off of those energy sales to various nonprofits, to temples and others who are involved in social justice programs, such as climate change, suicide prevention, and other sorts of projects. And it's actually a large reason why that company was created, was to be able to produce an income source that then could fund these sort of socially useful and responsible programs in the community. Reverend Takemoto, the founder, he's concerned about the breakdown of bonds in society, which he actually feels is related to the climate crisis. He doesn't think that these are disconnected things. Essentially what he's saying is that the crisis of our time, the larger crisis, is a loss of connection. So this means, for example, connection with the earth, connection with the sources of our food, connection to our neighbors, connection to one another. That the loss of these various sorts of connections are fueling the various different crises, from climate change to suicide, big issue in Japan, and many other sorts of things. They also support financially various other temple initiatives, like exercise classes for elders at the temples, or cooking classes, these sort of things designed to renew or strengthen bonds within the community. I'll read just a little bit about what Reverend Takemoto has said about what he's doing here. The reason we formed our company is because we agreed that there's some very important challenges to address. The first is a tendency to consider one's own life mainly in isolation from others. The second was the climate change, or the climate crisis, as Greta Thunberg refers to it. I believe the basis of these problems is a fundamental tendency in our society to increase suffering, especially in the struggle over wealth. Further, society is always driving us to consume more and more by increasing our desires through advertising. It's a mechanism embedded in society where the few people try to control the masses in order to increase their own wealth. Concerning the problem of human isolation these days, we want to enable people to feel a warm connection with others and to create a world in which no one has to feel alienated or alone. Our ultimate goal to achieve this is to develop a community around the Buddhist temples that are found everywhere in Japan, so that no one has to feel left out and everyone can feel connected. The temple was the center of such local community for many centuries in Japan in the past. We want to emphasize creating connections in a society in which desire is not the determining factor. Such a society is a place where we can be connected beyond differences in race and religion, and where we also have an economic system that's based on sustainability rather than desire. We're trying to make a mechanism based on Buddhist ethics that's not based on desire, taking what is not given, or conflict over resources, but is rather based on a sense of mutual trust and energy. So that's a long quote, but I just wanted to provide a chance for Reverend Takamoto's own words to come through, because this describes some of the values behind the creation of this Buddhist energy company, which I found quite interesting. So why am I bringing all this up? You didn't come here today for a lecture on Japanese energy economics and this sort of thing. Why is this in the Dharma talk? Well, I think actually that this relates to Earth Day. Here we have an example of Jodo Shinshu Buddhists undertaking effort to contribute positively to the problem of climate change. And what I especially appreciate is their emphasis on connection. I think that's really important, right? Because interconnection, interdependence, these are at the heart of the Buddha's teachings. I got some happy news last week. I've been accepted into the Masters of Environmental Studies at the University of Waterloo. So it's official. I'm going to be pursuing a master's in social and ecological sustainability. And that approach was important to me as to why I chose that particular program, social and ecological sustainability. Because the climate crisis, it's not just simply a matter of ecology, right? It's a social crisis with social roots and social effects. And we have to recognize our interdependence, how our actions help or harm others if we're going to be able to build a better world. And I think there is a sort of a great disconnectedness which has arisen through various sorts of vectors, really. Ironically, excessive use of personal electronic devices, which are supposed to connect us, is one of the ones really driving us apart. The loss of social gathering spots like temples and churches. We don't have what are sometimes theorized as third spaces very much anymore, and that's an important thing. And honestly, just the general triumph of selfish individualism certainly in North American society, and honestly, there's a lot of it in Japan these days too. All of this is part of the fuel for our overconsumption and our ignorance on environmental matters and other sorts of things. Like Reverend Takamoto, I feel that if we can come to really value one another more, to value community, to work to nurture and preserve it, then I think that this would have a real reduction in wasteful behavior towards the environment too. And all of this, it makes me think of something that I saw in Hiroshima many years ago. I may have mentioned this here at some point. I can't remember, but not everybody will have heard it if I did. There in Hiroshima, which is traditionally a strongly Jodo Shinshu area in Japan, the local temples decided to create a type of art installation. So they gathered photographs, headshots of hundreds of local Jodo Shinshu members. And they gathered all these pictures together, and out of it, they assembled it to create a huge image of Amida Buddha out of all these pictures. Each photo was a tiny part of that image. I wish I could show it to you. It's not that easy to describe. You'll have to picture it here, right? Because, all these photos, they're all people's headshots, but in each photo, there's gradations between how light or how dark or whatever the various photos are, depending on what the light was, what people look like, what their clothes were in the picture, this sort of thing. So you can get kind of these gradients, and then they could assemble them in a way that, if you kind of step back a little and instead of looking at each face, we're looking at the totality, it really resolved into this like gigantic image of Amida Buddha. It was really kind of amazing and impactful to look on. And I was really struck by this because, at least for me as a viewer, it really brought home a truth about the Dharma. All of us are connected to one another. All of us are embraced by the compassion of the Buddha. And it's through our care for one another and the creation of community that Amida Buddha's compassion is most directly felt during our lifetimes. If I could do one thing with that picture, I really love that picture. I thought that was a great sort of direct visual representation of the teachings. But if I could do anything further to it, I expand it even further. Not just pictures of all the people, which are so important. I would also include pictures from local trees in that picture, and the local rivers and the ocean. Hiroshima, of course, is a seaside city, and the birds and the insects and the animals that live in the Hiroshima area. They too are all part of the great interconnected web of life. And they too are all embraced by Amida Buddha's great compassion and affirmed just as they are. We're all part of one shared community. We need to do whatever we can to take care of all the parts of that Sangha, all the human and non-human parts of that Sangha. When I feel moved by all the ways that things are supporting my life and enabling me to be in community with them, I feel Namo Amida Butsu welling up inside of me. So when I say the Nembutsu, I'm thankful to the Buddha and to all the forces which are enabling my life. And on Earth Day, whenever that's coming up, sometime soon, I'm sure I'll know the date when I actually get there, right? When I'm participating in biodiversity counts and on-campus cleanup efforts and things I'm looking forward to me, those actions will be like a type of Nembutsu. You know, they express my gratitude and my love, and that's something that the Nembutsu does. So in a way, in a certain way, they're like a sort of Nembutsu for me too. Now, how does all this connect to Hanamatsuri? Well, Hanamatsuri is, as we heard, this is the celebration of the Buddha's birth in India 2,500 years ago. He was born in a garden in a roadside rest stop, essentially, for travelers. His mother, Mahamaya, she gave birth while standing up, grasping onto a tree branch for support. And when the baby was delivered, the tree burst into sudden bloom over her head, and flower petals fell all down around the mother and the child. So this is why we call it Hana Matsuri. Hana Matsuri. Hana is flower, Matsuri is a festival. So this is a flower festival, the Hana Matsuri. So this is an ancient story that we've received from the past, and we can ask ourselves, why did the tree suddenly bloom with flowers? Is that just like a nice part of the story, or is there some meaning there? Well, it's a Buddhist story. So there's always going to be some meaning there, right? There's always something going on with a Buddhist story. The ancient Indians and ancient Japanese, and for that matter, Europeans and the people of what we now call North America, they all believe that there was a strong interconnection between human beings and our surrounding environment. This was just a taken for granted fact to them. So what we did, what we experienced, what we thought, all of this directly manifested in the environment, they believed. And the local environment influenced our hearts and minds. This was their way of operating in the world. So when the baby who would become the Buddha was born, the trees, the plants, and the sky, they reacted with joy to this sort of a miraculous event, right? So refreshing rain fell from the sky, which is where our custom comes from, of pouring sweet tea over the statue of the baby Buddha, right? And all of this is connected to the story of the Pure Land as well. When Dharmakara Bodhisattva fulfills his 48 great vows, his transformation into Amida Buddha, it's so profound that the land around him is transformed into a place of harmony and happiness, the Pure Land. So these ideas of people and the environment being intermeshed with one another, these occur over and over again, actually, in the Buddhist tradition. That tree in the garden, I think, it blossomed because the Buddha was a person who was fully in tune with his full self. And that means not just his interior mind, but the complete interconnected web of all things that produced that mind in the first place. So the tree flowering, it can represent how the heart of the Buddha and the life around him were in full harmony with each other. And I think there's another way, though, that we could look at this that relates to our talk. And the good news is I'm almost at the end. I think the flowers, in a way, were how the tree said Nimbutsu, right? Trees can't say Namo Amida Butsu. Like, I've never met a tree. I've never been walking by a tree and just heard it go, Namo Amida Butsu. Like, if it did, I would probably jump out of my shoes, right? That would be kind of freaky. Trees can't do that, right? But surely the tree was thankful that someone who had been born who could help us to understand interconnection and interdependence. Someone who would love trees. You know, the Buddha was born under a tree, awakened under a tree, passed away into nirvana between two trees. Trees were a major feature of his life, right? So someone who loved trees and could teach others ways of living that helped them to respect and care for all the lives around them, right? I think the tree was grateful for this. So the tree offering flowers is, I think, how a tree says Nimbutsu, how it expresses its gratitude and its awareness of interconnection. So as Earth Day approaches, I'm aware of the many ways that I'm connected with the life around me and how my actions help or hurt the many beautiful living things in this world. And I hope that I'll be able to live in a way that a tree would wish to bloom in gratitude for me. I think that would be a lovely thing. So these are my thoughts here on Hanamatsuri and on the approach of Earth Day. Thank you, everyone, for your patience and listening. Let's close our Dharma talk by putting our hands together in Gassho and just saying the Nimbutsu together. Namo Amida Butsu. Namo Amida Butsu. Namo Amida Butsu.